If something happened to me tomorrow and I could no longer manage our portfolio, what rules would I want my spouse to follow? Not market forecasts, not a giant spreadsheet, not a bunch of complicated what-if scenarios. Just a few simple rules. Rules that could protect our portfolio, reduce big mistakes, and make life easier during an already difficult time. Because a portfolio is not just supposed to work when the person managing it is calm, healthy, focused, and fully engaged. A good portfolio should also survive stress. It should survive confusion. It should survive grief. And it should survive a moment when the person left in charge does not want to become a full-time portfolio manager overnight. That is one of the most overlooked questions in investing. A lot of people build portfolios for themselves. Far fewer build portfolios their spouse could realistically step into and manage if they had to. So, in this video, I'm going to walk through the 5 portfolio rules I'd want my spouse to follow if I couldn't manage the money. Hello, fellow compounders. Welcome back to the Always Be Compounding Club. I'm Dennis Chen, CFA charter holder, former hedge fund manager, and Wharton MBA. On this channel, we talk about how to build wealth rationally, calmly, and for the long term. And today, I want to talk about something practical, emotional, and very important. What happens if the person who normally managed the money is no longer able to do it? Maybe it's because of illness. Maybe it's because of cognitive decline. Maybe because of an emergency. Maybe because they passed away. Whatever the reason, the question matters. Because a portfolio that depends entirely on one person's memory, judgment, and constant attention may be more fragile than it looks. So today, I want to talk about the rules I would want my spouse to follow if I could no longer manage the portfolio. Not because my spouse is incapable, but because in a difficult moment, clarity matters more than cleverness. Before we start, a quick disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only, not financial advice. Investing involves risk and all examples are hypothetical and for illustration only. Always do your own research. Rule number 1, keep it simple. The first rule is this: keep it simple. This may be the most important rule in the whole video, because in normal times, complexity can feel smart. In stressful times, complexity becomes a liability. If a portfolio has too many accounts, too many holdings, too many exceptions, and too many little special rules, it may work fine for the person who built it, but it may become overwhelming for a spouse stepping in during a difficult moment. That is the real test. Not, can I manage this? But, can someone else manage this if they're tired, grieving, overwhelmed, and not specially interested in investing? Imagine a household with several brokerage accounts, several retirement accounts at different firms, a pile of ETFs, some individual stocks, and a few notes like this one. Only sell this if rates fall, or don't touch this or that unless we're in a recession. That may all make sense to the person who built it, but to a spouse stepping in under stress, it can feel like chaos. Now compare that with something much simpler. One main taxable account, a few retirement accounts invested in broad-based funds, a cash reserve bucket, and a short written explanation of what each piece is for. That may not feel as impressive, but it is far more durable. Simple means understandable, and understandable matters when life gets hard. Again, that is a general educational principle, not a one-size-fits-all recommendation for your household. And once the portfolio is simple enough to understand, the next question becomes obvious. What exactly should the spouse do? That leads directly to rule number 2. Rule number 2, write down the plan. Rule number 2 is this: write down the plan. If I could no longer manage the money, I would not want my spouse making high-stakes decisions from memory. I would want a written system, a plain English document, something simple enough to follow, but specific enough to reduce panic and improvisation. That plan should answer questions like, what are the main accounts? What are the main holdings? What is the target allocation? When should the portfolio be reviewed? When should it be rebalanced? Where should spending come from first? And just as important, what should not happen? For example, do not sell everything because the market is down. Do not chase whatever is working right now. Do not invent a whole new investment philosophy in middle of fear. Suppose the market falls 25%. Without a written plan, a spouse might think, we need to sell before it gets worse. With a written plan, the instructions might be, do not sell long-term equities because of market declines alone. Review quarterly and rebalance only if allocations drift beyond preset bands. Or if the spouse needs monthly living expenses, the written plan may already say, use checking and cash reserves first. Refill short-term treasuries. Do not touch long-term equity holdings unless the cash bucket falls below a certain level. That kind of clarity matters because if there are no written process, emotions fill the vacuum. A written plan is not magic, but it is a guardrail. It reminds the spouse that I do not need to be brilliant right now. I just need to be steady. Now, even with a written plan, there is still one big danger left: fear. And that brings us to rule number 3. Rule number 3, don't make big decisions in a panic. Rule number 3, don't make big decisions in a panic. This one is huge because if something happened to me, there's a good chance my spouse would be making decisions during emotional stress. And that is exactly when big mistakes become most likely. So if I could leave one behavioral instruction, it would be this: slow down. Do not make major changes quickly. Do not suddenly decide the portfolio needs a whole new philosophy. Do not liquidate long-term assets just because the market looks scary. Do not turn a temporary emotional state into a permanent financial decision. Because one of the most dangerous combinations in investing is fear plus urgency. That combination causes people to sell into weakness and lock in damage that may have been temporary. Imagine if the portfolio falls from 4 million to 3.1 million during a bad market. The emotional reaction might be, we can't afford to lose more, sell half. But if the portfolio was already designed with 2 years of cash and short-term reserves, then selling long-term assets in a panic may solve no immediate problem and create a lasting one. Now, of course, sometimes changes are necessary. But the key word is thoughtful, not panicked. The first job is not to optimize. The first job is to avoid self-inflicted wounds. In investing, doing less is often smarter than doing more, especially in a crisis. Again, this is a general framework, not personalized advice for every viewer. And once we reduce the chance of emotional mistakes, the next question becomes very practical. Where does the money come from when it's needed? Rule number 4, know where the money comes from. Rule number 4 is this: know where the money comes from. If I could no longer manage the portfolio, I would not want my spouse guessing where cash flow should come from. That decision should already be simplified because when bills need to be paid, confusion creates stress. So I would want a clearly written cash flow plan. Not perfect, not overly optimized, just clear. There should be some logic around what cash reserves exist, what short-term assets are there for spending, which accounts get tapped first, which assets are meant to be left alone for as long as possible. Now, the exact order depends on the household, the account types, the tax structure, and the goals. So again, this is hypothetical and for education only, but the principle is universal. A spouse should not have to invent a spending system in middle of a hard season of life. Here's a simple example. Suppose the household has 1 year of spending in checking and money market funds, another year in short-term treasuries, a taxable brokerage account, a traditional IRA, and a Roth IRA account. A written instruction might say, spend cash first, refill cash from short-term treasuries, use taxable sales from brokerage account next if needed, and delay IRA and Roth withdrawals unless tax planning requires otherwise. That may not be perfectly optimized in every scenario, but it is clear, and clarity matters. A portfolio should not just be invested well, it should also be operable. And finally, there's one more thing I would absolutely want in place: a trusted human being. Rule number 5, know who to call. Even a simple portfolio and a written plan may not be enough. Sometimes a spouse just needs a calm second set of eyes. Someone trustworthy, someone who understands the plan, someone who is not trying to sell a shiny new product in middle of a vulnerable moment. Because when one spouse normally handles the money, the other spouse may suddenly become a target for bad advice, sales pressure, or well-meaning but unhelpful opinions. Friends will have opinions, relatives will have opinions, advisors may appear with polished presentations. That can be overwhelming. So I would want my spouse to know exactly who the trusted contact is. Maybe that is a good advisor. Maybe that is a trusted family member. Maybe it is a specific professional who already understands the household plan. But it should be one clearly identified person or team, not 10 voices all saying different things. Because what a spouse often needs most is not a brilliant new idea. It is context, reassurance, and calm. That can be an enormous difference. Now, when you step back, you start to see what these rules are really about. What these rules are really about. These rules are not really about maximizing return. They are about making the portfolio survivable. They are about making the household resilient. They are about reducing complexity, reducing confusion, and reducing the odds of a major mistake during a hard time. Because the true test of a portfolio is not just whether it works when the primary decision maker is healthy, focused, and engaged. The true test is whether it can still function when life gets messy. And that is why I think every investor should ask this question. If I could no longer manage the portfolio or the money, would my spouse know what to do? Would the rules be written down? Would the system be understandable? Would there be a trusted person to call? If the answer is no, then the portfolio may be more fragile than it looks. That does not mean panic. It means planning. And by the way, if you want help thinking through your portfolio in a calm, practical, long-term way, that is exactly what we do inside the Always Be Compounding Club. It's a place where thoughtful investors who want to make better decisions, build durable systems, and create a portfolio they and their family can actually live with. And just like on this channel, the focus is on education, framework, and long-term thinking, not one-size-fits-all recommendations. If that sounds like your kind of investing community, check it out. Visit the link below and you can join for free. So, here are the 5 portfolio rules I'd want my spouse to follow if I couldn't manage the money. Keep it simple, write down the plan, don't make big decisions in a panic, know where the money comes from, and know who to call. That is not flashy, it is not complicated, but it is practical. And in my view, practical beats clever when life gets hard. Because a great portfolio is not just one that compounds well. It is one that can still function when the person who built it is no longer there to guide every decision. And one final reminder, everything I shared today was hypothetical, for illustration, and for education only. Your actual portfolio should reflect your own goals, risk tolerance, time horizon, tax situation, and overall financial plan. Remember, the key to building wealth is to always be compounding. See you in the next video. Take care.